Day 4 of moving my game to Godot from Unity because I can. Last time I got started on the interaction system and got the basics working with the raycasting. And also, if you're wondering what this is, someone said my intro was too static and they thought the video was paused because their audio was muted. So now you get this and you have to live with it. Alright, but for today I want to finish the interaction system, and then I only have building system, crafting system, and inventory left to do. First I made a little UI to show a interaction message. So when you're hovering over an interactable, there's a little text that pops up with the key you have to press, and also a word like pickup or interact, or it would be craft on the crafting bench, whatever I need it to be. I finally added a font, which is super simple. And you also have to use little keywords. There's something called BB code, which I'm not sure what it is. It's kind of like Text Mesh Pro in Unity, I think. So I also used a center keyword. I'm not sure these are keywords, these are something. But I used the center something and to center the text in the middle. And then I made a quick function to change the text, and I used a function called append text because taking a look in the documentation, that's what I got from it, like append text would do it. And then it was just about, raycasting an interactable and checking, if you're hovering over an interactable or not. So this is done in the process function. I thought I'd do it in the physics process because it's done less than the process function. I think I ended up doing it in the process anyways. Does it really matter? I'm not sure. I don't even know. So the code is pretty much the same as when you're picking up an item. You just do it every frame. And then you check, if it has a method, and this time the method is getInteractText, which is on the base interactable, and it returns a string. It returns interaction text, which is a exported variable, which you can set in the inspector. So that's some nice functionality right there. I also remembered to add the center keyword something thing in the function, so I don't have to do it in the inspector because I'm dumb and I would just forget to at some point. So preventing disasters here since 2022. And as you can see, it wasn't working because I was using a wrong function name in the raycast method. And then it crashed because I forgot to assign a reference. And it crashed again because I was using the wrong function to set the text. So the correct function, it actually wasn't a function. It was, so you get the text as a reference or a variable. And then you use bbcode underscore text. And then you set that to the string. So it's not an actual function to set the text. I didn't find any function to do it, so I guess you just change the variable. But that's of course if you're using the BB code editor thingy. I think otherwise you would just say .text is equal to. But it's working now. Next I just needed to hide the UI if I was hovering over an interactable, and otherwise I'll just show it. Those are two simple functions in the UI controller, which are called when it's hovering an interactable, and now that's working. That's great. Lovely. Also, someone in the comments said that the shaking artifact could be because the floor collider is too thin, which is correct because I'm using a world collider or world boundary collider, whatever it is, which is just a plain collider. And so I changed it to a box collider, which didn't fix it. So we're leaving like this for now. So now I want to add the whole point, click, and that's it, and hold until you're bold functionality, so you can actually pick up an item just by clicking at it, or for a crafting batch, what I initially did in Unity was you have to hold it down for 1 second and then it opens up the crafting station. I think it just adds a bit of variety and makes it less boring in some way. I started by making a interactions data class, which will hold the info about the interactable that the player is trying to interact with, or in this case pick up. It holds the interactable variable and has a few functions: to set the interactable, to interact, which calls the use on the interactable, to compare two interactables and see if they're the same, and to check if the data is empty, and also to reset the data. Just a few functions. Then I tried to test if I can get the script of the hit object using the getScript method, because that's what I saw in the forums, and it just made me more confused. But it's getting something, so it's not null. That's good. And then it took about an hour, but I had something going. As you can see, it wasn't working. So I just played with the tuna can because, I mean, that's all what I had. I will see you in the next rifle. What? The first problem was I wasn't resetting the interaction data when the player stopped looking at the interactable. And then I fixed the first problem, and it seems like there was no second problem because it just worked. Because I'm that good, okay. That was the hold until bold functionality, but the point click and that's it also works, as you can see. And the hold functionality comes from the interactable, where you can just you have a boolean that says if it's a hold interactable or not. If you're interested about the code, there are two functions in the process method. There's the handle interaction UI, and then there's the handle interaction input. So the handle interaction UI is the one that's called every frame. I mean, the other one is, but I'll get to that. So handle interaction UI just raycasts, checks if there's an interactable. If there is, then it shows the interactions text and also updates the text. Yeah. And otherwise, if there's no interactable, then it hides the text and also sets it to 0 or null or nothing. It doesn't really matter at this point because I'm hiding it. And then I also reset the data, which is kind of important. But then there's the handle interactions input, which checks if the interaction data is empty. So if we're not hovering over an item, I just pass or return. So I just stop it right there. But if interaction data is not empty, then I check if the interaction key is pressed and set interacting to true. And if interacting is true and interactable is not null, then I check if interaction data interactable is true or false. If it's false, I pass. So maybe at some point there will be an item that's only interactable at a certain point. So that way I can change that and have a whole more functionality. But at this point it should always be true on an base interactable. Then I check if I released the interaction key. If I did, then I just set interacting to false and move the hold timer, which is the amount of seconds, I guess, milliseconds that the button has been held down. Okay, but if the interaction key hasn't been released, so if it's still being held down, I increase the hold timer by 1 second times the delta time. So just increase it every frame. And then I get the held percent. So the percentage, which is equal to the hold timer, which is, times of seconds the button has been held, and then the hold duration. And then at some point I check if held percent is bigger than 1. And if it is, I call the interact method. I also set interacting to false and reset the bit of UI. And if it's not a hold interactable, then I just interact and set interacting to false. Quite simple. I just said interact like 50 times in the last minute and my head hurts. Please subscribe. Also, at that point, I didn't have I couldn't really see the held percent. I mean, you could just hold, but you didn't know anything was happening. So I wanted a way to like visualize the progress, because I had that in Unity as well. So I just added a new progress bar to the center of the screen around the cursor or around the crosshair. And I just did the same thing I did with the stat progress bars and had this. Okay, it isn't perfect. The problem is that the progress bar works only with integers, and this was in floats. So I just multiplied the held percent by 100, and then it worked. So finally, the interaction system is done. That's one more check mark on the list. There is one problem with this. It only works with base interactable. I'm still not sure, because there's no interfaces, and I don't have enough time to think about how I would implement this with like inherited classes. But that's a problem for another day, because until we get to the crafting system, we won't even be using that. So I'll just hold it until then, or until I get more time, so I'll think about it. Next on the list is the inventory system, which if this took me 2 days, inventory system is going to take me like a week. But I guess you'll just have to wait and find out, so join me next time. Woohoo! Until the next update, bye now.